This is a Hamilton Polari Project feature presentation. This is an emergency advice. Possible nuclear strike against Canada has been received. The current threat level is emergency advice, meaning an emergency is likely. There is significant damage risk to life and property. Civilians should stay in their homes. Prepare now for nuclear explosions. Ensure you are inside or in a refuge and secure. Impacts have now been confirmed for the following locations: Hamilton, Ontario Industrial Area, Toronto, Ontario Financial District, Ottawa, Ontario Capitol Hill, Alberta Oil Sands, City of Vancouver, BC. Attack in progress. Attack in progress. Seek immediate shelter. Attack in progress. Attack in progress. Attack in progress. Seek immediate shelter. The Hamilton Polari Project presents.
Good morning. Today I'm very proud of myself.
What do Donald Trump's nominations mean for people with HIV?
What a great honor it must be for you to honor me tonight.
As we move closer to Inauguration Day on January 20th, President-elect Trump and his transition team have slowly started naming the nominees for top spots in his administration.
As the greatest president in the history of the United States, me, Donald John Trump.
Much like Trump himself, these nominations have been unpredictable, unorthodox, and in certain instances, baffling.
What's the difference between a wet raccoon and Donald J. Trump's hair? A wet raccoon doesn't have $7 billion in the bank.
Identifying and analyzing key players in the new administration is critical to restructuring AIDS United strategy and educating people living with HIV as to what these appointments might mean for their future.
I am really proud. I am really honored.
HIV touches on many different policy areas beyond healthcare, so it is important to recognize the impact new leadership in a variety of government agencies will have on people living with or at risk for HIV.
We have very stupid people in our country negotiating for us, and we have leaders that don't know what they're doing.
The chances that the Affordable Care Act, ACA, or Obamacare, is still the law of land at this point next year are somewhere between slim and none. With that being said, there is very little consensus around what will take its place. Despite the charged rhetoric from President-elect Trump, a full repeal of the ACA, as promised in his contract with the American voter, is unlikely for a number of pragmatic reasons. For starters, a complete repeal of the ACA would require at least 60 votes in the Senate, which isn't likely given that the GOP will only hold 52 Senate seats. And, should the 60-vote hurdle be cleared, congressional Republicans and the Trump administration would be forced to confront the fact that replacement plans created by GOP leaders and conservative think tanks are more conceptual than practical, proving thin on implementation instructions. For his part, President-elect Trump doesn't have a fully formed health care plan of his own.
Obamacare is going to be repealed and replaced. Obamacare is a disaster.
Part of the beauty of me is that I'm very rich.
As with the Trump presidency, Dr. Ben Carson's nomination as the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, brings uncertainty. When Dr. Carson was being considered as Secretary for the Department of Health and Human Services, Armstrong Williams, a friend and advisor of Dr. Carson, told the press that Dr. Carson feels he has no government experience. He's never run a federal agency.
I'm actually a nice person.
Gary Cohn is the current president and chief operating officer of Goldman Sachs. Donald Trump tapped him to run the National Economic Council, which coordinates the president's economic policy. It's not an unprecedented move. Two former NEC directors under President Obama had ties to Goldman Sachs, but the pick might anger Trump supporters who rally behind his calls to minimize Wall Street's influence in government.
A strong supporter of the HIV/AIDS community, Sir Elton John said, "I fear for the world, globally, with the AIDS situation. If Donald Trump gets to be president, he'll marginalize people. He's already doing it." Senator Sessions has generally been responsive to local HIV/AIDS issues in Alabama and hosted a roundtable aimed at educating congressional members about the HIV epidemic in the South. Additionally, he has voted in favor of the Ryan White program reauthorizations since he became a senator. Unfortunately, Over the course of his political career, Senator Sessions has proven himself to be a fierce opponent of civil rights for people of color, immigrants, and individuals who use drugs. During his time in Congress, Senator Sessions has often taken the lead on the crackdown of undocumented immigration, while also openly disparaging documented immigrants based on their country of origin. Senator Sessions also has an extensive record when it comes to opposing the basic rights of LGBT Americans, having supported legislation banning same-sex marriage, LGBT military service, and has opposed protection from workplace discrimination protection for LGBT people. With over 40% of people living with HIV receiving Medicaid and about a quarter receiving Medicare, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, plays a very direct role in the lives of people living with HIV/AIDS. Seema Verma, a seasoned Medicaid consultant, was recently tapped to lead the agency. In addition to working on Iowa, Ohio, and Kentucky's Medicaid expansion proposals, Ms. Verma most notably worked closely with Vice President-elect Pence and was integral in designing and implementing Healthy Indiana Plan 2.0, HIP 2.0, Indiana's Medicaid expansion under the Affordable Care Act. Her work on this system in Indiana continued during the HIV outbreak that occurred in Scott County, Indiana in 2015.
Indiana is declaring a public health emergency in one county due to an epidemic of HIV.
And the governor says the number of cases could climb into the triple digits.
This is all hands on deck. This is a very serious situation. The numbers may not sound particularly alarming, but in my meeting with CDC on Monday, they should be.
The Centers for Disease Control is going to Indiana to help address an outbreak of HIV. Most of the cases are linked to intravenous use of a painkiller called Opana.
Federal authorities have arrested 4 people in connection with that HIV outbreak in southern Indiana. The DEA says the 4 men distributed Opana painkillers and methamphetamine.
Through the needle exchange, users get as many clean syringes as they need for a week, along with sanitary kits, condoms, and sharps containers for free. There have been very few new cases of HIV reported since the program began in April.
As a result, many residents of the county were enrolled in Medicaid as part of the response to ensure that they received HIV treatment and care as quickly as possible. These nominations further highlight the uncertainty surrounding the new administration. They contrast with recent progress in the U.S. on civil rights for racial, sexual, and gender minorities, criminal justice reform. AIDS United will continue to hold federal agencies accountable, especially those living with HIV/AIDS. We urge appointees to review how their policies will impact those they have been nominated to serve and to ensure that all people living with HIV are able to have their needs for care, treatment, and housing met and to have access to a fair justice system that will decriminalize HIV exposure. The current Republican platform does not specifically discuss the domestic HIV epidemic within the United States. The 2016 Republican platform discusses the current opiate epidemic in a section on combating drug abuse. It touches on the misuse of prescription drugs and highlights the party's support of legislation aimed at curtailing the overprescription of drugs. The platform also calls for support of the recently passed Comprehensive Addiction and Recovery Act. While the terms LGBT, gay, and homosexual are not mentioned in the 2016 Republican platform, it does clarify some of the party's stances concerning the rights of LGBT Americans. It's not just that Trump literally doesn't mention HIV/AIDS in his healthcare policy, nor that he's generally anti-science to the 1.2 million people living with HIV in the United States and indirectly 75,000 plus Canadians and 16,000 plus Canadians not diagnosed, leaving his policies on this health crisis a matter of speculation. It's not even just that every single Trump cabinet pick so far has some king of anti-LGBT record. That should be cause for alarm. An outbreak of HIV infections in Indiana while Vice President-elect Mike Pence was governor stands as a sober warning of how quickly an epidemic can emerge in the absence of strong and effective policies. Trump may be remembered for explicitly dismantling the AIDS safety net and for enacting policies that will make the virus move more freely between people. We should not only worry about our patients, but also the public health emergency that will result from the increased community viral load. The election of Trump has had reverberations throughout the world and has given a boost of adrenaline to the far right in North America and Europe.
A lot of us are really smart. I'm really smart.
After Trump's victory, racist acts have also cropped up in Canada.
You're a little bitch, eh? You're a little bitch. Welcome to Canada.
This video shows a man hurling racist insults, threats on Toronto streetcar yelling "Go Trump."
And he said, yeah, so what, go Trump.
You know what it is? These people think they have a right to assault us. Go back to your fucking country!
This shouldn't be happening in Toronto.
Don't worry, Bob. I remember your face.
In Ottawa, a suspect is arrested following hate graffiti. Richmond residents are alarmed at racist flyers. And in Toronto, racist alt-right posters appear near an elementary school. If there is a bright spot in the November 8th election, it's that no one is complacent at the moment. The media is publicizing the significant uptick in racially motivated attacks and vandalism that have occurred since the election. Social media platforms such as Twitter and Facebook might now be taking some action to minimize the amount of false news disseminated online and shut down profiles used to attack and intimidate ideological opponents and journalists. People are protesting in the United States, Canada, and around the world. The question now is whether or not this will all continue into Trump's first term or, much like the Occupy Wall Street movement, will devolve into a muddled message, competing egos, and ridiculous factionalism. Thank you for watching this video. And may God bless America and the world.
Who is responsible for this madness?
We need to build a wall, and it has to be built quickly.
You're hearing a guy running for president of the United States talking of maybe using nuclear weapons.
This has proudly been a Hamilton Polari Project presentation.